Welcome to the Business Advice Podcast, where we discuss marketing, money, and other matters with businessmen around Australia. So, who is Justin Gibson?
Oh, geez, what a question, hey? It's always a fun one. Country boy from Mildura, Victoria. Born and raised down there. Moved up in 2000.
Okay.
Up to Queensland. So caught a truck up there rather than a bus or a plane or anything like that.
Hitchhiked?
No, well, friends, his old man owned a trucking business, so it was just nice and easy to get a lift up there with one of the drivers.
Yeah.
So that was a bit of an experience. I left school very young, so as soon as I had a chance to leave school, I was gone. So I think it was like 14 9 months or 15 9 months, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So left halfway through grade 9. Had an itching to get out into the world and to start having my own experiences. School really didn't do much for me. I was suspended and expelled and God knows how many times. And just very, very much itching to get out into the world and start having some experiences.
Yeah.
We had a farm down there, a fruit and vegetable farm. So we had rock melons and we had honeydew and we had cuttings as well of vines. So that obviously kept me a bit busy in between on the school holidays, and got my work ethic from my grandfather in that respect.
Okay. Just checking, can you still hear me okay?
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, fantastic. So you're a teenager, you leave school, you're working, doing farm work, whatever you can get to start off.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That sort of started the process and got a apprenticeship doing plastering. So I did that for a couple of years and ended up getting fired from that because I didn't like heights. Tried to follow my dad's path of being a motor mechanic, and that didn't quite work out. And done what else did I do? I worked at a brickworks. I've done a lot of different types of odd jobs here and there.
Okay.
I had an opportunity to go to Sydney when I think it was about 16.
Okay.
And I was that role was for Mr. Minute, the key cutting and shoe repairs. You might see him in the shopping centres. Yeah. So I was the youngest person to go through their graduate program in Sydney.
Okay. Interesting.
So I went through that whole process. I was the youngest person to have done that.
How old are you now?
Just turned 40.
Okay.
40 years young.
Yeah. Okay. And what do you reckon? So that's, that we're kind of, I don't know if you see the younger generation now. Like my parents' generation, like they worked and the generation before that worked extremely hard. And I remember
very stoic people.
They made fun of me and my generation for being lazy. And I don't know if you find that, but then I look at the guys who are now 20 years old and they don't want to get their hands dirty. They don't want to lift. They don't want to, it's workplace health and safety, the mental health days, and there's nothing wrong with that. You got to be safe at work and mental health is important. But man, so is hard work, right?
That's right. It's a different era altogether, I think. And we didn't have it as easy these days as what the kids do, I guess. Every generation sort of says that, is that we never had it as easy as the previous generation, so to speak. But with all the technology and everything that makes things easier for people in this day and age. There's probably more opportunity now than what there has been.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, for people that are serious about getting into it and aren't scared to roll up their sleeves and get their hands dirty, so to speak.
Mm, mm. Yeah, well, just to work hard. Like it doesn't working hard isn't necessarily lifting and doing something dangerous that's physical. It can be
No,
um,
no,
making 100 calls in a day, and
100%. Yeah, being focused on your goals and objectives. Yeah.
mm, mm. Yeah, interesting. So I really wanted to hear about your project that you briefly mentioned. I don't want to ruin it. So
Yeah, that's all
tell
right.
me more.
The
Tell me
first
more.
one.
Yes.
The first one.
Yeah,
Well, we
yeah.
were working in the industry at the time, and we actually got ripped off by our boss from our pay. And that sort of started the whole thing off, that, stuff this. Well, if he can do it, we can do it. So we decided to tell him to stuff off, and, we got a credit card. Well, I got a credit card. I think it was about 10 or 15 grand. And we started down the road of getting our own product and our own office and furniture and things like that together. So it was 2003 in March when
Right.
we registered our first company.
Okay.
Yeah.
And sorry, what so when you say product, what was that for this business?
It was more, that one was more around like racing industry software, if I can say it that way. So it was actually tracking the money through the TABs and where the money actually got dispersed.
Oh, right. Interesting. Okay.
So we're working with a developer, a software developer at the time to help develop the software.
Okay. Okay. And so how did that work? How did the business model work?
Um, well, like everyone that's sort of young, you sort of well, what I've found, I've been very lucky through all my experiences and all the different jobs and that I've had over the years. I've sort of had experience from this and experience from like administration and then experience in sales and marketing. And I guess it was an opportunity to really put everything together.
Right.
So my other business partners weren't as experienced as me, even though I was the youngest, which was actually quite funny. I was, 19 at the time, I think, 19. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
So we put together a basic website and we got a very small office. It was, I don't know, 40, 50 square meters. And it wasn't that flash in any way, shape, or form, but it was a
Mm.
start. You
Okay.
know, I remember taking my mum's car that the brakes were failing on it, and an old Mitsubishi Magna, and there was bloody rust everywhere. And we limped that up to the auction so we could buy some furniture for the office and to fit it all out with desks and chairs and everything like that.
Yeah. Right.
Um, we really started from nothing in that respect.
So,
You
wh-
know.
who were your clients and how did you get them for that business?
This is going obviously back in 2003. This is where the laws and that were a little bit different in regards to marketing and SMS messages and things of that nature. So we came in just on the back of the laws changing around the text messages.
Hmm.
So back in those days, you could actually write a message and you could send that out with a call to action. So if you'd like to generate an extra 100, $200 an hour, home-based business, please give us a call, 1-800, blah, blah, blah. And we had a couple of phones set up and we'd send the messages out and, we'd sit back and then all of a sudden all these phones would be ringing hot, the five phones or whatever it was,
Right.
and we'd just be getting names and numbers and, hey, we're just getting inundated at the moment and we'll be sure to give you a call back when we can.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
that's how
Right.
the lead generation started. Yeah.
Right. So just ran like you got a database and you spammed it.
Yeah. Yeah. We're actually quite lucky, I
Fantastic.
guess, that the timing was right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, now like you just can't do that now. But
No,
then,
you can't. No. no, very much so. But obviously, people know people, and there's lists available online, and there's plenty of places that you can access lists, and there's plenty of people that you can talk to help procure a list as well, and going through the proper channels of washing it and all the rest of it. But any young fella out there at the moment that's considering doing it, make sure that you do your research, and that you do things that are according to the law, because you don't want it to come back and bite you on the bum.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, and there's more sophisticated ways of getting
What was
leads.
that? Sorry.
That there are more sophisticated ways of getting leads these days. Um,
Oh, absolutely.
Paid ads and Google and forums and Facebook groups and um, yeah, yeah, you don't have to do it. That there's new technology and applications that's not necessary. But that was in your time in
Yeah, that's right.
2003. That was
Yeah.
innovative and legal and ethical and yeah, and it worked.
Oh, 100%. It did work. It gave us really good bang for our buck. Over the years, we've obviously developed more into more telemarketing style lead generation and email marketing and things of that nature. We sort of grew
Mhm.
and expanded into those sort of avenues. But at the very beginning, it was SMS message. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. Fantastic. And so where did the business so I'm still confused, like what was the like what was the service product? What were people buying? What was the motivation and what were they doing? Like was it
Um, with the product itself,
yeah, yeah,
yeah. The product, as I said, was more around the racing industry. So we have a
yeah,
live
yeah.
feed of data directly from the TABs, and
Oh,
they could actually monitor and track every single dollar that was placed through all the major TABs in Australia. So we could see what was a large singular transaction, what was a multiple smaller transaction, and then the software would then dictate and color code the significant increases on where the smart money, so to speak, would then be indicated through the racing industry.
interesting. So it's yeah, so online gambling.
Yeah, packaged up as like a home-based business. It was pre-taxed or tax-free because it was classified as gambling, so to speak,
Yep.
and legitimately could generate, between $100, $200 an hour, depending on, other variants.
That's wild. Wow. And it's back then, like that model was totally because I think the laws have changed now. Yeah. Like, is that model
I haven't been in the space for many, many years, so I
okay?
wouldn't sure what the laws are now. But back then, we didn't have any issues doing what we were doing.
Yeah. 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 And yeah. Yeah. So it was a legitimate, it was fun for the end user. They got the thrill of whatever. Like, I hate gambling myself. I
We
don't do
need
it.
both. Yeah.
Yeah. But some people love it, and if they want to, if that's their game, and they can afford it, and you're not preying on drunk idiots or something, like I mean, the first one's the pokies, man, bloody hell.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, it is. My grandfather was a degenerate gambler. He all of his brothers made a lot of money throughout their life, and were millionaires in their own right. And my grandfather was the only one that wasn't, and
mm,
that was a subject to being a degenerate gambler and being an alcoholic.
ah, there we go. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's important. That's an important caveat. But yeah, if there's symbiotic businesses that are ethical and legal, then
Yeah,
fair game. Hey.
absolutely. But mind you, I was a young boy back then. It's not necessarily what I would choose or dictate to do in this day and age.
Mhm.
But at that time, through those eyes, it seemed to be the right thing to do at the time.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's fair. Yeah. Um, Interesting. Okay, so what other marketing strategies and tactics did you use
Well,
thereafter?
we had sort of a three-stage process, a three-step process for that, so to speak, where you do an EOY off your lead gen.
Mm.
which is your expression of interest. You may have some qualifying factors in there,
Yep.
which is access to funds or affordability. I guess that's obviously a
Yep.
big one, and obviously a genuine interest in what you're talking about.
Mm. Mm.
Once they had that, you would then, hand over to like a salesperson that would be able to give them a bit more of an in-depth overview on the product and service and how it all worked. Obviously, further clarifying or qualifying, whether it was something that was legitimately of interest, and ultimately to organise a free demonstration of the product. So we would sit down through use of, it was BNC Viewer back then, I think, where
Great.
we'd link up over the computer, similar to how we are now,
Yep. Yep.
and we'd display the software working in real terms, in real time.
Yeah. Great. Okay. So that was initially through phone numbers, so text messages, then email. So then you would get an email database that was
Yeah,
alongside.
throughout the EOI process. Yeah.
Yep. So there was different
Yeah.
ways of initiating that first contact, and then a way to filter and pre-qualify them, then qualify them, and then they would become a client,
Yes,
or
that's
it's a
correct. Yeah.
customer. They were well, no, it's kind of a mix between service and product, isn't it? Like you're kind of offering a
There's a
service.
bit of both. Yeah.
Mm.
They did receive
Hey,
a product and we delivered a service at the same time. Yeah.
interesting. Yep. Brilliant. And so that eventually wraps up. Like, how did that end? And
How did that one end?
yep.
Um, well, we done very well out of it. We turned over $1 million inside of our first 12 months worth of
Wow.
turnover, and
And
we grew
was
that
it?
from.
What was the structure? So you had like a few business partners, was it? Or?
Yeah, I had two business partners at the time. Yeah, so that was done just about by us three. That million turnover. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so it's doing great, and then you were young and stupid, and something it went
Oh,
wrong.
very stupid and very young. Yeah,
Well,
very much so.
and now we're just stupid. We can't use the young caveat anymore.
Young at heart, mate. Young at heart. Yeah.
So what did you close that down? What was the um
Yeah, well, ultimately, it was mismanagement of the business and money and the whole kit and caboodle. It was a big learning curve, in itself. It was going from like turning over the million inside of our first 12 months. We continued to grow and to continue to scale. We had nearly 400 square meters of office space, paying 20 grand a month in office rent. We had over 40 staff paying 20 grand a week just in bases, not including commissions or anything of that nature. Your phone bills would be 20 grand a month back in those days. You paid for every single call, every
yeah,
single minute you paid for.
different time,
So
isn't it?
we built that and we worked hard. I think we were probably best weeks were 80, 120 odd thousand. But with that, we partied a lot, we drank a lot, we took a lot of drugs, and we had a lot of fun.
Wild. Oh wow, it's I'm thinking of Jordan Belfort right now.
Yeah,
I've
just
got
not on
that
a
scene.
grander scale. Just not
What's that?
not that. Yeah, we certainly had fun though.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
So I just didn't have the right people around me at that stage to, all throughout my life, and not having a father when I grew up was more around, having to learn the hard way. What does
Interesting.
it mean to
Yep.
be a man, and how do you make those decisions, and that you tend to pick up things from the people that you're around, good, bad, and indifferent. And
Yep.
unfortunately, I picked up a lot of those bad habits from the people that were around me, because that's what I saw ultimately.
Okay. Okay. And so what is the lesson there? So if there's any young blokes watching this, what's the lesson that what should you have? What did you do wrong, and what should you have done? If you had the time again, how would you have managed it better?
Putting the business day to day aside, because I think that's sort of irrelevant. There's plenty of things that I could have done differently to be more successful.
Mhm.
But obviously being more firm on a budget, and being able to manage my money correctly. I think that's number one.
Within the company? So cash flow, so
And
rent.
myself personally, you know,
Uh,
yeah. As the old
okay.
saying goes, a fool and his money is soon parted, and it's so bloody true. Um, it's so easy. It's easy and hard to make sometimes, but it's even harder to try and keep a hold of it. So it's important that you have those good habits and those good structures in place to protect your money and to make sure that you've got it there for when you need it.
Okay. Yep.
That'd be a big one.
Yep.
And the other big one is an obvious one around alcohol and drugs and
Mhm.
women and all those sort of things that
Yep.
um, you know they're all fun at the time, and
Yep.
you're very popular at the time when you're paying for everybody's experiences. But I can tell you what, there wasn't anyone left over at the end of it when it all went away,
Yeah.
and it does go away.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Okay.
so I'm actually 8, 9 years sober now. I haven't had a drink in
Brilliant.
9 years.
Oh, that's
Ended up making a big impact on my life. Alcohol.
yep.
I ended up being an alcoholic. You know,
Right. Okay.
so
And the
just
same with
being
the
able
drugs,
to.
like
Sorry.
same with the drugs. Like, was that I mean, alcohol is a drug, so
Yeah,
um,
it is, but mine was more party. I wasn't too bad on the drugs, or not as bad as what I've seen other people on.
yep.
But it's still a lot of money, mate, when you're doing it every week. An 8 ball of cocaine was $1,000, and you're doing one of those every week, along with piss and all the rest of it. You're 5, 6, 7 grand in every week,
Wow.
and obviously you look at the property market and what that's done, and if I had made some smarter choices and directed that money into, say, property, there'd
Oh,
be a multi-million-dollar property portfolio sitting there right now, and I'd be a lot more comfortable than what I am now.
yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. So they're probably a couple of the biggest ones. Without lecturing the young fellas, obviously it's good to have experiences and to have a bit of fun, but just draw a line and make sure that you stick to your budgets and don't go overboard.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, so the temptation is when you get the success to think that that success is unlimited, and so then therefore your spending is disproportionate to what your success is
Yeah.
perceived to be.
Well, when you're at the top, you don't feel like there's ever going to be a bottom. I guess it's the same as when you're at the bottom. You never feel like there's going to be a top,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
there is. And
yeah,
it's the habits and the rituals and the things that you do when you're down the bottom that'll impact and play a role when you're at the top. So if you
yeah,
have good money habits and you have good personal habits now while you're building, by the time you've accumulated and built something, you've got the right infrastructure or the right foundation in place so you can really capitalize on it.
mm, mm, yeah,
And ultimately that's how you're generating, true wealth.
mm, yeah, brilliant.
You know?
So that's a good one.
I guess the young kids these days have got it pretty hard because it's all, everything's over the phone with Instagram and everyone's showing how easy it is to be rich and buy a bloody flashy car and, a 10, 20 grand watch and, a hot bitch on the side of your arm and, it's in your face everywhere.
Yeah,
So it does take a bit of a bit of inner strength, to be firm with yourself.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Not to well, yeah, it's very what's the word? Ugh. Like work hard, party hard, but it's not principle based. It's not. proportionate to reality. So it's the perception of success and riches on the Instagram feed. But if you don't have, blue chip savings and long term wealth that is underpinning your Instagram feed, it's all
Yeah.
it's a shallow pool.
Oh, that's right. Like 1 or 2 tricky weeks, they can soon make you unstuck. Something that's taken you 2 or 3 years to build, and you're now at a stage that you've got a hungry beast that you're running. If you have a couple of weeks worth of poor sales, well, you need to have some money from somewhere because you're the last one that eats.
Mm,
Everyone gets paid before you do.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's true. Hey, it's what are there some specific things there that like how did you learn the lessons? Like, did you read a book, a mentor, an accountant, or all of those things?
Um, I wasn't smart enough to have an accountant. I did read a little bit when I was younger. I read a lot now as well. Um, so those educational books were always helpful.
Mhm.
But a lot of it was trial and error. It was making the mistake.
Any resources that stand out from that period that were inspirational or
Oh,
formative?
Rich Kid, Smart Kid, Robert Kiyosaki. He was a
Yeah,
good one at the
Rich
time.
Dad Poor Dad.
Rich Dad Poor Dad was another one. The Cash Flow Quadrant. There was a few that he did.
Ah,
The Richest Man in Babylon.
oh, I
That
love
was
that
that
book.
was a
Eh?
good book.
Yeah, yeah, that's
That
fantastic.
was that was that's something that I'm actually going to go back and start reading again shortly. I think, it's a good book, that one. There's a lot of different titles. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but yeah, there's
Mm.
there's plenty of resources there.
Yeah,
There's a lot
yeah,
of resources these days just on YouTube alone.
yeah. Brilliant. So fast forward to the next. So there was that was the first big project, but then there was another one.
Yeah, there was. Like after that, I got into sort of the stock market and working with stockbrokers and applying the same sort of skill set that I'd generated in being able to create customers.
Mhm.
I went over and started doing that with stockbrokers. And we had another business that really didn't take off. It didn't really do much. But
Okay.
what it did do is set the foundation for my next venture and my next business partner at that time.
Okay.
So
Well,
that was around financial planning and
okay.
financial advice. Yep,
Yep.
we specialised in self-managed superannuation.
Okay. Yeah.
So my partner at the
SMCs.
time, he done the administration and compliance end of the super, where I was more on the sales marketing side of things.
Okay. And so what was the product there? Or also product slash service?
The product. Well, when we started that, I'll go back. When we started it, my business partner said, "Listen, I'm happy to pay to develop the product in whatever we needed to do, but he was never going to pay my wage while we did that. So I had to sell my car, my pride and joy from my first enterprise. So I sold it.
What was it? What was it?
It was a E36 BMW convertible.
Nice. Okay.
Um, yeah. So that was my pride and joy at the time at 20 years of age. Yeah, so I had to sell that, and that would then be my resource that I had to keep food on the table and everything done until we started making sales ultimately.
Mhm.
Um, so I had to do a lot of research out in the marketplace. I looked at
And
what the
so
competitors were doing.
you, I, I, I think this is important. You sell your beautiful, luxurious car, then how are you getting around? How are you going to meetings?
I
How are you
actually
getting to
got
the office?
I actually got my partner's. brother's car at the time, which was an old Prelude, so it barely had any air conditioning or anything like that. It was a heap of shit, but it was reliable and it was cheap.
Yep, and something you could afford, and then you could forego your salary because you could
Yeah,
work effectively for free because you had money,
yeah,
you had savings.
that's right. Yeah, I backed
I think that's
myself
an
because I
I
knew
think
my,
that's an
my own
important lesson.
ability. Yeah,
People
I
see,
knew what I was capable of.
yeah, interesting. The people are so used to instant uh, success and gratification that they
Doesn't
don't
happen, mate.
see the,
Doesn't
yeah.
happen.
Like what are
Doesn't
the
happen.
sacrifices people have to make for that instant overnight success to happen?
Yeah,
That's great. That's
it's
fantastic.
years and years worth of long hours and early mornings and late nights and time away from the family and not having friendships and it's all those things.
Mm, fascinating. Yeah, I think that's the anyway, so I interrupted. So you
All
sell
right.
your dream car, you get the shitty Prelude. Now you're into venture number two at 2021.
Yeah, probably 25 at this point, around
Oh, okay, okay,
25. So it's a few years between the first and the second one.
okay.
Yeah, but yeah, so we designed the product and put it all together, and I was lucky I had a few leads that I could carry over from what I was doing and a few clients that made it easier to get a few across the line sooner rather than later.
Mhm.
But again, started from the bottom with nothing, no infrastructure, no real product, no staff, no nothing.
Okay. And you're selling so effectively some sort of investment so that people could use their SMSF. So they've got 200 grand sitting in their super. Otherwise,
Yep.
they have an SMSF, and they set up the SMSF, but they've got to put um, the financial planner says put 80% into blue chip something, which is making
Yep.
5% if that, but they'll put 10% or so into something crazy.
Yeah, well, there was a lot of different things that was happening, and this is pre or post GFC. This is around the time as the global financial crisis.
Mm-hmm.
So we were setting all them up, and we have relationships with stockbrokers that could help buy and sell shares with them. We had an education portal that would help teach them a bit about shares if they wanted to. We had a insurance arm as well that could take care of their income protection, their TPD, life insurance, etc. And then we had an international property arm, which was located over in America.
Yeah.
So we were buying blocks of real estate in America off the banks, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, etc. Like when the shit hit the fan over there, and we were buying chunks of properties very cheaply.
Yeah.
So I think it was a perfect storm because you could make money on the foreign exchange, you could make money on the property purchase, you could make money on the yield of the property, and then ultimately when the FX the foreign exchange corrected, you could make money on all of that when you bought it back over. So it was really an opportunity of a lifetime, so to speak.
Mm, fascinating. And so I mean, they're complex products. So did you have an FSL, AFSL
We
yourself?
were a car at that stage. We had a corporate authorised representative license, so we were under somebody else. And
Okay,
then eventually we did obtain our own full license.
okay. Fascinating. Um, right. But you're selling to the end. Were you selling to financial planners who were selling to their clients, or were you selling to the
No,
client?
selling just to our own clients. So
Okay.
we'd generate our own clients from nothing. Yeah.
And so they had an SMSF, so that
No,
no.
my business partner at the time had the administration and compliance.
Mhm.
So he would set the fund up and he would administer the fund ongoing. He'd also arranged for the audits, and he had a web platform that allowed customers to access their documentation and things of that nature.
Yep. Yeah, brilliant. Ah, that's such an intricate business. That's fantastic.
It was, but I really loved it. It was nice being able to, to work with clients ongoing and to build good, positive, relationships with them, and really deliver on the things that you say that you're going to deliver.
Fascinating. And so what uh, I'm personally, I mean, I work in marketing, obviously, so
Yeah.
I'm really interested in those finer details of how you did, how like the advertising and like the high level marketing. So I get it, like that model works, so it's a great product, it's a great service. It's something that people can't replicate themselves. So, that's why they're going to you, because you're offering something that is not easily accessible. Um,
That's right, but a lot of time and effort went into getting all the scripting and everything like that right as well.
yep,
There's probably took me a good 6 to 8 months just to get that right.
yep,
You know, because not coming from a background of knowing what you're doing to having to get it right, there's a lot of ground there, and there's a lot of trial and error.
mm,
And it took some time to get the recipe right, so to speak.
yeah, okay. And just for those listening in, so like I get that because I've done a little bit of that in the
Yeah.
past, but so how are you initiating contact? Like, how are you initiating contact with prospects with this
Well, a
model?
lot of that was done through use of telemarketing, and also through email marketing as well. Yeah.
Okay.
So
So
we do live webinars. There'd be, pushing people to an online form to register their interest, that we could then contact them to have a general open conversation about things.
yep.
That would ultimately, go to like a one-on-one type of demonstration or chat over the internet.
Mhm.
Yeah, and where you could show them what you were doing and how you were doing it, and if that sparked any interest.
Yep. Yep. That's brilliant. Yep. So wow, I mean, that's like, so literally cold calling for some of those clients.
Yep, yep.
Oh, and were you doing that yourself, or did you have a team? I,
Well, being the being the owner at that point, you're responsible for everything. So if I can't do it, how can I expect you to do it?
yep.
That was sort of my thought process. So I had to learn how to do it.
Yep.
And
And
once
so,
I knew how it could be done, I could then teach other people how to do it.
mhm. Okay. So you worked it out. So over a process of 6, 8 months, you're fine-tuning the script and how to communicate the value proposition of your service and product. And
Yep,
then immediately you're documenting that and then teaching your team how to do what you just worked out how to do.
that's correct. Yeah, 100%. One person at a time, and slowly duplicating that process.
Cool. Okay. That's brilliant, man. And so what went wrong with this one? What were the lessons
That's a big, a lot went
learned?
wrong with that one. Because that was actually quite successful. We built that up to over 500 clients in the space of a couple of years. Um,
500 clients. That's
yeah,
huge.
over 500, and we were probably bringing on at that stage 10 to 15 new funds a week.
Oh, that
Yeah.
is fantastic. Yes,
And
okay.
we've done that in 2 to 3 years. So
That's
I think we had,
huge.
geez, we would have had over 80 million under management.
80 mil in 2 to 3 years.
Easy, easy. Yeah,
Oh, that's
very
fantastic.
much so. So, like
It's,
I made a lot of mistakes in it
was
myself
this,
personally. Like,
yeah. And the seed
you're right.
funding was just the BMW for you, like to buy your time to start this.
That's correct. My partner at the time, he funded the development of it,
Yeah, okay.
which I think was around 20 grand.
No,
Yeah, it
two
was about
zero
20 grand.
zero zero, like not 20 million.
20,000. Yeah,
Damn.
yeah.
Oh, that is wild, man. I
It
mean,
wasn't
I
a
can,
lot. A lot of it was hard work.
yeah, like that's like 12 hours, maybe 16 hours a day, 6 days a week, sort of thing. Like,
Yeah, well, it was 5 days. Yeah, probably 5 days a week, and then that sort of grew to, 16, 17 hours a day.
but then, so was it, did you still have the same culture at that point of work hard, party hard?
No, no, it was very different. Still drank. Was still at the pub every night, but it wasn't getting drunk and writing myself off.
Okay.
It was more wind down, discuss business, moving forward, those types of things. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Interesting. Okay. And so what were the lessons learned on this one?
Well, ultimately, our licensee ended up getting investigated by ASIC.
Okay.
So I'm happy to be as open and transparent as I can.
Yeah,
You know,
like
the
Jordan
mistakes
Belfort.
that I've made, if I can impact somebody's life that's watching it in a positive way,
Yeah.
to help them just because of my misery and and the stuff that I put myself through, well, it's worth it. You know,
Yeah, fantastic. That's
I'll
great.
try to be as open as I can with you, mate. Yeah.
As long as you're comfortable, and I'm not gonna, you're not gonna get arrested next week after that.
No,
But
not
yeah.
again. No.
Ah, okay, great. Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell, I'm keen to hear what happened there.
Yeah. So anyway, I think we got roped into the an investigation with ASIC. I guess that's sort of how it started. The Australian Securities Investment Commission.
Mhm.
So they wanted to make sure that just because we were associated with this corporate, this licensee, that we were doing things correctly. And as it turns out, we weren't. So there were a lot of things that actually came unstuck, and the premier ended up commenting on our case, and we had a fairly big federal court matter that became of it.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And were they, so it was deemed to be illegal, but was there anything, were you guys doing anything unethical?
Well, through the eyes at the time, like I genuinely thought that everything was above board and we were doing things correctly. I honestly believed in every ounce of my soul that what I was doing was right. And, that's how I could justify putting the time and effort and sacrifice into it.
Mm,
That it was not only going to reward myself financially, but also the friends that joined in with the venture and that was working with us as well.
mm,
Um, I really thought that it was it. It was the one that was going to take us to financial freedom and ultimately, be financially free.
mm.
But unfortunately, that wasn't the case.
And what was
There
it
were a
too
lot of
high?
issues.
Was it
Sorry.
was it regulation and compliance, or was it too high risk? Like, did people lose money, or what? What?
All the above. Like at the end of the day, the vehicles that were putting people into the property side of things weren't legitimate in any way, shape, or form. As much as I thought that they were legitimate at the time, my business partner and other people that were involved on that end were actually doing the wrong thing and taking the money for themselves and
No.
paying for their own lifestyles and rather than what they were supposed to be doing with the money. So clients ended up
Like
losing millions and millions of dollars.
a Ponzi, effectively. So they were
Well, similar,
fudging.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Well,
They
they
were
were. They were saying that money was going to be used for X, Y, and Z, and unfortunately, it wasn't used for that.
Ah, wow. Oh man. So it all unraveled. Wow. So how did that?
It
What
did.
happened next there? So there was an investigation, criminal charges.
I was lucky enough not to have any criminal charges. I didn't have any personal wrongdoing at that stage, but there were professional and financial repercussions from that.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. So not
So,
only was there a significant court case that went for many years, I was ultimately found guilty of a numerous, pages of different things, and was banned for 7.5 years.
uh,
Ultimately, yeah,
from operating a company.
operating a company and working inside of financial services. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, wow.
So in the
So,
midst of all that, oh, it's all right. You can ask your question. Go for it.
well, I'm just curious. I've got a few questions there. Like, what? It's
Sure.
really more of the same. Like, where were you? Was it naivety? Like, were you naive, or
I was, yes. I had
um?
too much faith and trust in the people around me.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, ultimately, that's what it was. I knew that I wasn't experienced in the industry itself, and I trusted on the education of those around me to help steer me in the right direction.
Mhm.
But ultimately, I didn't trust my own gut instincts, and that's something that I deeply regret.
So, if you had your time again, like, were there like initially there might well in every business there's always a bit of bullshit or a bit of gray stuff that happens. You're like, well, it as long as it's ethical, it's communicated, it's dealt with, like, you gotta, but that's beyond gray. That's black. So at what point were there indicators that you should have like jumped in and investigated or had difficult conversations earlier? What would you have done differently?
I would have done a lot differently. I would have ensured that there was separation between myself and my business partner at that stage. I had an opportunity to have that at the very beginning,
Oh,
but I thought that I was doing the right thing by bringing them into the business and doing it together. I thought
mm,
that if we were going to work together, and we we're both going to invest into this entity, then we should disperse the profits and everything equally. I thought that was the fair and appropriate thing to do at the time, but it certainly wasn't. I should have kept that arm's length, and I
mm.
should have been making my own decisions.
Yep. Okay. Yep. And so
100%.
then would that have looked like a sales and marketing company that had a symbiotic relationship with the financial services company? So you're doing so you because that was your ability, yeah, sales and marketing.
Yeah, it was the sales and marketing and the training and everything of that nature. That was more my experience. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, okay. And so then that could have been done for like on a commission basis so that you were separate from the products which they were culpable for and responsible for.
Yeah, I should have backed myself a lot more and believed in myself a lot more that I was capable of being able to do it. Where ultimately I didn't think I was at the beginning because I never had that experience in the industry,
Mm,
and I should have obviously sought out those experienced professionals to give me the right advice that I needed in those spaces. So even if that meant having a compliance person brought in specifically to ensure that we were compliant. It's such a simple thing, but it certainly wasn't at that particular point in time.
yeah.
You know, I
But you
really feel
don't want to
for the
see.
customers that got tied up into it. That's what I feel the most for.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But you don't want to, you can't go in assuming that like everyone's uh, capable of doing the right thing and the wrong thing. So you don't want to,
100%.
you just don't want to take the assumption that someone is And sometimes the best people are those who have done the wrong thing in the past and they learned.
Even if they've done the wrong thing in the past, like I'm guilty of doing that. I think a lot of people are, but that's how you've learned. And you can't judge
Yeah,
somebody by their past just because of what they've done. There's
yeah,
plenty of people that have been able to turn their lives around and make a positive impact in the world, that have come from those sort of backgrounds.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so then there's what if I'm just thinking if there's a young bloke watching this, like what's the lesson there? Like it seems that sometimes there are, it's a bit grey and you see like a bit of a red flag and then but there can be an apprehension in having the conversation because that's going to be really awkward and it's beyond awkward, it's criminal. So if you
Yeah,
initiate a conversation with your mates who you're trusting, um, it's going to be a fight and it's going to be really painful and difficult. But it's better to have it then than with the police later or
that's right. But it's also the benefit of hindsight as well, is that you're not as astute as what you are at the end of it than what you are at the beginning.
yeah,
Um, and it's always the people that you're closest to that, excuse the expression, but fuck you the hardest.
yep,
It's that's just my experience. It's certainly not the case, obviously, with everybody, but it's certainly, you're the most vulnerable with those ones that are closest to you. So you need to ensure that you're protecting yourself and protecting your business that you're working so hard to build and to develop. You know.
mm, yep. And so you mentioned that other thing too about bringing in a compliance officer. So there was the money
Yeah.
there. You could have brought in a compliance officer.
Money
Uh,
wasn't the issue. There was lots of money there. There's
okay.
plenty of profit in what we were doing.
So you could have had
Um, but
paid for a lawyer or an accountant,
yeah,
and had them sitting in the office starting to go
yeah,
through things, and then that would have that person would have raised concerns at the next board meeting, and then it could have been
mm,
addressed proactively instead of reactively if that was in place.
that's exactly right. And ultimately, that could have protected the customers, tenfold.
Okay,
Yeah.
I believe
And it's
that's
something that I've spent. What
I
was that?
believe
Sorry.
I believe that's mandatory now, isn't it? To have a compliance officer that's
Yeah,
relatively independent, doing
yeah.
a regular
They actually
audit.
changed a lot of laws off the back of our case. I think
No
we were one of the
way.
first big ones in self-managed superannuation here in Australia.
Oh,
So they
can I ask
changed a
the
lot of
name?
legislation, and they, yeah. So on that sense, it's been a positive thing that those things have happened to help other people.
Mm,
But my heart goes out to the customers that were affected, because ultimately all they did was trust us. It wasn't their fault. We let them down. You know,
yeah, yeah. Can I ask what the name of the company was?
yeah, it was Royale Capital, Royale Capital, Capital, and yeah.
Interesting.
So you'll probably find a fair bit online about that one. Yeah,
Interesting. Wow. Oh, well, thanks for sharing that. That's
yeah.
it's so good. Well, one, it's just it's interesting hearing the roller coaster, like the going up, the difficulty of building something, the intention of building something that is meaningful and beneficial, the difficulty of doing that, like just building a normal company, like being a plumber is
Mm,
difficult, but building something
absolutely.
like that is extremely impressive. uh, but also to be put in that situation, wow. Oh
Yeah.
man, what a difficult situation.
So not only did that happen, like towards the end of that, I was actually diagnosed with stage 3 cancer, testicular cancer,
No. Oh
while
man.
the court case was going on.
Oh,
So that ultimately led to quite a number of operations and chemotherapy and things of that nature.
oh,
And I was
and
married, divorced, had a child, ended the business, was sued by the government, taken to court, and had cancer all in the space of 3 years.
No.
Yeah,
Oh, that's wild, man.
yeah. It
Unbelievable.
was the hardest time of my life. Yeah,
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
yeah.
Uh, and you're healthy now?
Yeah, well, I ended up getting cancer again for the second time, probably 5, 6 years ago. Yeah,
No.
yeah.
Um,
So I lost my kidney this time.
no, but you got two of them. So, oh,
Yeah,
dude.
that's right. Very, very grateful
Oh,
in that respect.
oh
Yeah,
my goodness.
yeah. But as
But
it sits
you are,
today, I'm 5 years cancer free, and my health is all good. So I've got a lot to be grateful for.
oh, that's good, man.
Yeah.
Wow. Uh, so 5 years free, and dude, so you leave that. You can't do you can't be a director of a company for 7 years or something.
Yeah.
But that time's now passed. So that's
Yeah, it has passed. Yeah. So I
yep.
think that finished a couple of months ago now. But yeah,
Yeah.
lost everything. Yeah, lost everything as a result of that.
It's
Yeah.
effectively bankrupt, or was it bankruptcy that it was called, or
Pretty much. There was also a DPN that I was hit with at the time as well, which was close to 250,000
okay?
as a director penalty notice. But that's something that I'm still sort of working through. But yeah, there was lots. It was very very stressful, mate, and I certainly hope that no one has to go through that. It's never anything that you wish upon anybody.
Hmm. Yeah, I imagine. Yeah, and I guess
Yeah.
that's one thing that makes Australia great is that we do actually have pretty good checks and balances. So it ultimately is a good thing. I mean, it's unfortunate for you that you had the intention of doing the right thing, you worked hard, and
Yeah.
it was the association. Um, uh, but to protect the Australian people, there needs to be
100%.
yeah to
Yeah.
deter.
Like ultimately, I played a role in that as well. I put my hand up and I made mistakes, and I certainly wasn't innocent of everything. I've
Yeah.
had a lot of time to reflect on it, and but at the end of the day, you can just because you've made mistakes, it doesn't mean that you're a bad person or that you've deliberately gone out to cause hurt and chaos, for people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, that's
But at the end of the day,
admirable.
you often learn more from losing it than what you do from making it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think like Jordan, Wolf of Wall Street. Yeah, like
Yeah.
Jordan Belfort. Like, oh, I just love what he's so honest and open about what he did wrong, and like that's it's. I think it's important for a young man in business to know, just to hear these stories and go, hey, it's not, it can happen, and you got to
Yeah.
what.
Well, you don't get to hear the tragic stories along the way. I think you get to see and hear some of the success stories from what's online, but you don't get to see the messiness and how ugly that it can actually be when you don't get it right.
Mm,
And unfortunately, it happens more times than not.
mm,
But
yeah,
in saying that, I think it's important that I've got to be honest with myself. you
yeah,
know, about the roles that I played in it. If I ever want to learn, if I ever want to grow, if I want to ensure that I'm a better person, in the days and years to come, I've got to make sure that I'm truthful and honest with myself.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And you've got family, you've got children.
Yeah, I've got a child. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I guess that legacy, like knowing what, like they're going to hear this story, and they'll hear it from people saying it the worst possible version of the story, and they'll hear your journey through the story, and I guess that's
yeah.
I don't know, is that a motivator to provide them a legacy that is admirable to they go, well, dad was brilliant, dad made mistakes, dad got in trouble, dad rebounded and rebuilt, something like that. Like that's the
Yeah, well, I think everyone's got their own journey, regardless of what that might be. And I think that, honesty is a big part in it. And you've really got to be honest with yourself when you make those mistakes. And I guess even when you're starting, you've got to be honest with yourself about what you can do and what you can't do and what your shortfalls are. And, there's no weakness in that. There's nothing wrong with identifying those things.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. And so, what does the future hold for you? What's next?
Well, ultimately, it's just all about healing and recovering at this stage. Like I've been focusing solely on that for the last few years, and I'm making steps forward.
Hmm.
But going through those sort of things and subject to a lot of the decisions I've made, there's been a lot of consequences to it, and I've had to get right with those consequences and get right with the person that I was and the person that I believe that I am, inside. So
Mm,
there's a lot of relearning. Um, I think that's probably the word relearning, going on, and there's a lot of healing going on, mate.
mm.
Even your relationship and your mentality that you have towards money.
Yep,
Um,
yep,
you can't go through all that and then have a skewed, relationship to money. So
yeah.
that needs to heal. You need to get that right in order to be able to move on. You
And
know,
what are the details? Like, is that almost like a spiritual, religious thing, or is it more philosophical,
I
or
think it's
both?
I think it's probably a bit of both, a little bit of spirituality, a little bit philosophical. Yeah, I'd probably have to say it's a bit of both.
Yeah. And there's a values framework there. Are you a fan of Stephen Covey? Um, yeah,
Stephen,
Stephen Covey, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People.
oh
Yeah.
yes, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
he talks about principles and values, and um, like principles are timeless, but he talks that everyone's got values, even prison, criminals have values, but principles
Oh,
are timeless.
100%. Yeah.
Um, um,
But I think a lot of those values and principles are handed down to you, through through your dad and things of that nature. And my experience, I never had a dad growing up. So I
uh,
never had somebody that was able to teach me what those values were and what's important and what I should stand for. And, they're lessons that I've had to learn on my own the hard way.
mm,
That now that I know them, I can then now pass them down to my kids.
yep. At single mum household growing up, like was that
Yeah,
was
very
that or
much so. Three boys. Yep.
yep. And
Yep.
did you end up finding a mentor, like an actual like an older bloke, or something?
I did have, in the last business, the mentor was sort of my business partners. One of them was BRW Top 100 Rich List. He was quite wealthy and successful in his prime, and I was fortunate to learn a lot from him. Also, my business partner, I learned a lot from him too.
Okay.
But ultimately, it was those people that got me into the worst of trouble.
So mentors, but bad mentors. Well, both.
Yeah, well, I guess it's just a matter of perception. The eyes that I was seeing it through at the time seemed that it was, it was all good. It was, all on the up and up. But now looking back, it was certainly few and far between.
Yep. Yep. And so what's the process by, like like I look at some of my values in the past and go, well, and then how that informed my decisions. And I think, I mean, sometimes that was great. And other times I go, what was I thinking? And then moving towards, timeless principles, which are, just more. they work in every situation. That benefit you, that benefit everyone. But I don't know, what's the process? So like, is it reading? Is it self-reflection? What
There's a lot of reflection, and I think there has to be a lot of education, in re-educating, and I use that word again, re-education, because
Yep.
a lot of the things that I learnt weren't necessarily right. So you've got to nearly clear the decks and start again.
Yep.
But ultimately, that sets the framework or the foundation that you can then build something upon.
Yeah.
You know, having those values, those core values, is then something that you're starting your day with. As soon as you open your eyes, you're practicing gratitude. You're meditating for 5 to 10 minutes. You're rehydrating your body. You're not sitting there sucking on a screen. You're not straight into the energy drinks and eating shitty food.
Yeah.
You're respecting yourself, and you're honouring yourself in that respect. And as Bedros Keuilian says, you're stacking wins. And it's about going from win to win to win, and stacking those small little wins. And then once you put enough of those together, well, then you're able to put the big ones together.
Yeah. That's great, man. Oh, it's so cool to hear your story. I knew as soon as you messaged me, oh man, I got to talk to this guy.
Yeah.
What a journey.
It's definitely been a wild ride, mate. That's for sure. But I've learned a lot from it, and I'd love to have an opportunity at some stage in the future to have another crack at things.
Yeah.
I've still got a hunger to help people, and to be able to pass on some of my knowledge.
Okay.
I know I'm not always right, but if I'm able to help somebody through sharing some of my experiences, well, that's a blessing in itself.
Absolutely, yeah. Oh, that's exciting, man. Oh, well, I look forward to following your journey, and if others want to follow your journey, Instagram. You're on Instagram?
Yeah, Instagram. I'll pop it in the chat here for you, so you can put it up on the video. I'm not sure how you're going to use your many talents to do that.
Yeah.
But Justin Gibson, what is it? 4640. Yeah.
Cool. Excellent. Yeah, I'll put it somewhere so people can find you. And oh, that's great, man. Thanks so much for sharing your story. Thanks for being so honest too. Like, just being, man, that's impressive. Like, just thanks so much. It's inspiring.
Well, thanks for giving me an opportunity to do it. It's nice to be able to share things, and to be able to relate some of my experiences and my story. And I certainly hope that it does you some good in your ventures and in what you're looking to achieve as well, Adam.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Business Advice Podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.